What is up, Fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means another episode of Home Theater Fanatics Live. Tonight is episode 133, and we have another magnificent episode for you. And this time, I'm not even saying it tongue-in-cheek. I'm like serious and stuff, because we have Rob and Rolf, say that 18 times really fast, from ONKYO, and actually a lot more than ONKYO, and we'll get into that here with us, and they're going to tell us all about their stuff. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, man. That was quite the intro. Where do we get fancy graphics like that?
1995 right here. Just, money order check or whatever, pesos, whatever. I'll hook you up.
Yeah, Rob, we need to step up the game, man. We need some fancy graphics.
You guys have something better than fancy graphics. You guys have like a million AVRs. I can see him right behind Rob's head. He's all like, I just keep these around because it's fun.
Yeah, his electric bill is terrible.
Yeah, they're all just turned on.
A little radiation going on. Well, why don't we do the Rolf and Rob show instead? Let's try saying that 10 times. Rolf, Rob.
I think that would be cool. If you can get one more R in there, that'll
Rolf and Rob recommend.
Rolf and Rob recommend reconciliation with recalcitrants. I don't know. Anyway, getting back on track. I think maybe let's introduce you guys to everybody so they can kind of know who we got, who you are, what's going on. So Rob, maybe you go first and let everybody know who you are.
Sure. So I'm a senior product manager at it's actually 11 trading company right now, but Rolf will go into the details. But we've recently acquired the ONKYO and Integra brands, as well as licensing of Pioneer and Pioneer Elite products. I started with ONKYO about 4 or 5 years ago. I started in retail back in the early days selling hi-fi because I like to take electronics apart, and I went to Radio Shack and bought a book on how to build speakers. And I didn't build speakers, but I learned about an equilateral triangle, and I set up my old goofy rack system and just was blown away and had to be part of this industry forever. So from there, I ended up having my own custom installation company. So I built home theaters for people. And one day, a few years ago, I got a call from a recruiter that ONKYO and Integra brands wanted somebody with field experience to come in and take a look at their assortment and see if it's right for not just the custom integration market, but for the enthusiast market. So let me just put it to you this way. Like, if you've ever sat and looked at an AVR or any audio product and said, why did they build it this way? They should have done this. Well, I was that guy about 4 years ago. So for the last 4 years, I've been working very closely along with Rolf, with the teams in Japan. And what you're about to see in our new lineup for 2021 is all of that work, trying to bring what you guys, the home theater enthusiast market, as well as custom installation companies have asked for in these products. And we're super excited to talk about it.
So what I heard there was, if people don't like the products, you guys are to blame. And if they like the products, you get all the glory.
Yeah. And but the best part about this is, like, we hope that there are things you don't like, because we can't really continue to build better products. We can't make them the best. And everything changes at a rapid pace at the speed of a text message nowadays. So without feedback from the outside world, from the end user, or maybe even the custom integrator, we can't stay on top of our game because we're here busy trying to make it work on the manufacturing side. So feedback is the most important part of this.
That's awesome. Cool. Rolf, I think you're up.
Yes, and whereas Rob is a senior product manager, I am a lowly product manager.
Oh, you entry level guy, you.
Yeah. Well, I got started, forever ago, back at Pioneer. I was with them for almost 20 years, so I got to see the introduction of all the latest and greatest, coolest products like plasma TVs, DVD recorders, and Blu-ray. And I got to work on all of that as part of the product planning and marketing team over at Pioneer. So I got to work with some amazing people on both sides of the pond in that industry, and then got shuffled over to ONKYO USA when ONKYO Japan purchased the home AV division of Pioneer back in 2015. And I was kind of basically doing the same thing to a point at ONKYO USA. But when Rob was brought on board to really kind of set the stage for a rebirth of our custom installation products, I was put in the field with him to learn from him about custom integration, what the field needed versus what we thought they needed. So that has been a tremendous experience for me, and it's been a huge privilege to work with him in rebuilding the brands that we're going to be sharing with you tonight. So the ONKYO, the Pioneer, the Integra brands, you name it. We put an amazing amount of work into it over the last few years, especially. So now that they're finally starting to hit the stores, we are just, I can't tell you how excited we are to finally see the fruits of our labor. And it's been a very long and very difficult labor to get these amazing new products out in the street.
Well, that's awesome. And, just from personal point of view and my personal history, I've used ONKYO for a while. And I actually have a older AVR in my basement right now. It's not active, it's not plugged up, but I have it. But I think it's really cool that you guys are really working to reinvigorate, ONKYO, but that includes, Pioneer and also Integra as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's again, it's been a very long road, but we finally gotten to the point where we have the attention, the ear of the actual engineers and the incredibly talented people that are in Japan working on building all these new products. And we're in a position now where we can actually influence the feature sets that we get in these receivers. So it was great growing up with these brands, like so many people on this show can attest to, and being in the retail space, and then finally as a manufacturer, getting to work with these brands hands-on. But actually being in a position now to get people what they've been asking for all these years is really a great feeling to be a part of that process.
That's cool. And one other question, I think, just around the organization of things, and I've had a bunch of people ask me this question since I, posted up that you'll be on. People have been asking me, they're like, "What's up with ONKYO and Klipsch? What's that deal?"
We have no idea. No clue.
Everybody's like, "What?" And I think that nobody knows. But I've been asked a lot that question.
Well, so we get asked that a lot too. Half the time it's from family members, like, "Who do you work for again?" It's in a nutshell, what happened is very recently, within the last week or so, the deal was finally inked, signed, forward, that Vox, the parent company of Klipsch, and Premium Audio Company, which the company that Rob and I work for is called 11 Trading Company, and they are the sales arm of Premium Audio Company. And Premium Audio Company includes a lot of brands, including Klipsch. So we're all kind of hand in glove, a lot of across the aisle work going back and forth between all these brands. But within the last week, very long process involved where Vox and Sharp have partnered to purchase the home AV division of ONKYO, the same way that ONKYO had originally 5-6 years ago purchased the home AV division of Pioneer. So now we have direct access to ONKYO for ONKYO and Integra product. And we went to Pioneer Corporation, which still exists, even though they did sell off all their different divisions to different companies, including the AV division, of course, to ONKYO. But they still exist as a brand. So, we have to go to Pioneer Corporation and work out an agreement with them that we can continue to produce product with the Pioneer or the Elite name on them. Like anything else, as a business, if you've got a very prestigious name in the industry, you don't want your name on just anything. So we have to make sure that we present to them a roadmap, a plan. This is what we think about the brand. This is where we think it can go. These are the things we want to do. And as I think a lot of people on this call know, that's a brand that has been around for almost 90 years now and has an amazing legacy. But in the last 5, 6, 7 years in particular, it's kind of fallen off the radar for a lot of consumers out there for a number of reasons. And we want to change that in a big, big way. So that's why we have to work directly with Pioneer Corporation. So it's a little convoluted this time, many layers to it. But at the end of the day, the result is we're all focused. All these different companies are focused on one core idea, one goal, and that's to make the best AV receivers and 2-channel audio product in the industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hey, I need to interrupt here. So
please,
further,
I'm getting a scratchy throat.
I'm out.
Giles, happy birthday, man.
Oh,
happy birthday, buddy.
You're so nice. Yeah, and Facebook user, one of the faceless Facebook users has called it out. Yes, today is the day, and I'm sharing it with you. So my wife said, let's go do some special stuff tonight. And I said, I've got something special lined up already. It's stream night, and I've got 11 Trading Company coming on. And she's like, who? And I'm like, you've watched the show and you'll know. So this celebration.
We're ONKYO, true and true, ONKYO, Integra, Pioneer Elite. You're cut from the same cloth, my friend, because we wouldn't be here either if we didn't love this. And we're home theater fanatics, so that's why we're in this industry. We don't want to make sewing machines. We're not product guys who work with engineers to build oven mitts or dishwashers. We're in this because we were stung by it at probably an early age and just said, this is what I need to be doing with my life. And glad to be surrounded by like-minded folks.
Right on. Well, and this is the place. If you want home theater fanatics, we got them, along with 2-channel as well. And speaking of that, just I'm going to shout out a few people here. Hi-Fi Haven, hey man, glad to have you here tonight. My Mail is here with us as well. He said, I have a fancy countdown. Indeed, I do. Indeed, I do. Easy HT Tech is with us. What's up, man? How you doing? Another faceless Facebook user that's given us the what's up. Well, I don't know, whatever those are. Double H's.
Man, that's the horns, dude.
Yeah.
Dio. Come on, man.
How about this one? I saw this in Hawaii.
That's Hang Loose, yeah.
That's Hang Loose.
That's Surfer.
Shaka, bro. I heard that a lot. Kevin Sorkin is with us. He runs GSG Audio, or is one of the partners there. They make subwoofers if you like bass. He's your best friend. Good dude. A whole bunch of people with us. Herman is with us from over in China. We got D13 up in house, Brian Whitley, and the list goes on and on. But I'm looking at some comments here, and everybody's really happy to see you guys. And I've got folks calling out stuff, like I've got a Pioneer VSX LX304. I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool, right? And I've got a this and I've got a that, and here's another. I've got a VSX LX503 and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of emotional ties, I think, to this gear. People are like, I have it or I had it, and I got it at this time in my life, and I remember I was just getting married and had my first kid and blah blah blah. It's interesting how the stuff ties together. But to carry on the comparison of equipment to children, you said you're about to birth new children, right? So you have a new lineup that is just dropping now. Maybe we can start out with that and talk about what you guys have built into it, some of the features and that kind of stuff that's in this equipment.
Yeah, before we dive into that, something that you said a few seconds ago about emotions. Emotions are running high on this call already with all the people that are attending. Rob and I are incredibly emotional about what we do. We are fanatics, just like you are, Giles. So the conversations that we have on an almost daily basis, the amount of emotion going back and forth, like when we don't get things the way we want them, the amount of ranting and raving and hissy fits that we have until we can finally beat the engineers into submission into doing what needs to be done. We are audiophiles, we are videophiles, so we take this very seriously, just as much as our fan base does. So, you know, we're very pleased to see the kind of feedback that's in the comments section right now. It makes what we do even more worthwhile, I think. So enough of stroking everybody's egos. Let me share my screen for just a second if I can. And
yeah, pop it up and I'll jam it up there for everybody to take a look at. Yeah,
I'll jump into let's see. Don't show these tips again. It says share screen. Okay. All right. So let's jump into.
I've got your whole screen this time, including.
I got the whole screen in my hands. Let me see. Okay, here we go.
Oh man, that's magic right there. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that 8K Ultra HD logo I made in Photoshop, because you know all the other HD logos out there for 8K that I could find were all owned by other companies whose names I won't mention. Starts with an S and ends in a Y. So
you got your own now, though.
I got my own, man. It's all about me today. So we have, of course, HDMI 2.1. And before anybody asks, before anybody gets excited, it is the new HDMI 2.1, not last year's HDMI 2.1. It's the HDMI 2.1 for 2021. So.
Meaning that you don't need an external box to just make it function?
No, we do not.
All right. No, okay. I mean, you got to ask these days.
No, I know. Yeah, that's the big question that's going around is do we need an external box to actually get all the benefits of the HDMI 2.1 specification? The answer is absolutely not. So, you know, the first thing that's obvious about HDMI 2.1 is 8K. So, of course, we support 8K Ultra HD, 8K at 60, and 4K at 120, as we'll get into in just a second here. So it's not just about the increase in resolution, although that, I think, is something that is really misrepresented out there in the industry by a lot of the pundits out there, the journalists, because, you know, so many people out there are saying, oh, you don't need 8K resolution. 4K was great. Well, they said the same thing about 4K, and they said the same thing about 1080p back in the day. The one thing that's not changing in people's homes is the viewing distance, right? I mean, you're not getting a bigger TV and suddenly moving into a bigger place so that you can sit further away from this bigger TV. People are always talking about the optimal viewing distance. And sure, that has a legitimate point to a point. But the one thing that's not changing in people's homes when they upgrade their audio video system is the actual viewing distance from the TV. And the real big benefit of 8K, just like we saw with 4K, is because you have a much denser pixel structure, you can maintain that original seating distance and have the enjoyment factor of a much larger TV screen for a true theater kind of experience, where you've got this almost wraparound screen experience going into your peripheral vision, which is what widescreen was all about in the first place way back in the day. So that kind of experience can really be expanded upon tremendously without any loss of detail. So that's, to me, as a videophile, and I hate to say this in front of everybody, but I am a videophile first before I'm an audiophile. I got into the audio end of things a little bit later. I cut my teeth on rear projection, flat panel TVs. So,
well, you got to work with all the Kuro plasmas, right?
Yes. So the whole Kuro and Pure Vision thing, that was that's where I grew up in. So in the industry, in spite of the gray beard, I'm actually only 21. The gray beard
I'm only 18. So.
Well, somebody said sweet 16 in the comments.
Oh no, that was 2 years ago. I'm totally 18. It's been a hard life, but
I see some black in the bottom of that beard, though. Can black beard? Yeah. Can you explain that?
Look, you can't really see here, but I'm getting the gray coming in, and actually, I would have a full head of gray hair, but my body rejects gray hair. So, it just, as it started turning gray, just poof, fell out. I don't know.
All of my gray is stress from working with Rob. So.
Yeah. As Rob smiles and says, yes, it is.
All of my damage from you, Rolf, is internal and emotional.
Yeah, so I have one question. Your therapy bills are through the roof, I know.
I have one question about the 8K. So,
sure.
Does 8K give us 4 times the enjoyment of 4K?
I think it's logarithmic. So just like we have that incredible jump in pixels, that is more than 4 and more than 8. So not quite 2 million pixels for 1080p, and then you go to what is it, 16 million for 4K? I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. What the heck is this? But yeah, it just goes through the roof. I actually just got my first 4K TV, believe it or not, this time last year. I was still using my Kuro, last generation Kuro TV.
Okay, I have to ask this question.
Sure.
If we did a shootout today and we took the best plasma Kuro ever built, the most pristine of pristines, and lined that up against a really good OLED, take out all the other stuff, don't worry about the thickness of it or any of that kind of stuff, just pure picture. How do you think those two would compare in that shootout?
Well, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other, really. I mean, from just a straight up picture quality perspective, black levels, color reproduction, the OLED would win. It
would ounce it out a little bit, push over the edge.
It would. The thing that you might see that would be very, very competitive, even by today's standards, and I would still get a lot of comments from a lot of video files that would look at my Kuro TV, is the motion processing in the Kuros was beyond reproach. So a lot of people don't remember this, but one of the big selling points to PureVision and Kuro was our 3.3 pull down versus 3.2 pull down that was traditionally done by every other brand under the sun. So we would operate actually at 72 hertz on our panels, which meant that you could actually do some incredibly fine and smooth film to video transitions for very, very accurate motion reproduction. And that was still very, very exceptional. And the color reproduction, of course, between a plasma and an OLED are pretty close in how they do things. But yeah, the OLEDs definitely have the edge, in the last couple of generations in particular. I think, when you go to scale too, obviously there were never anything larger than like maybe a 61-inch NEC plasma panel. But, if you had a 60-inch 1080p Kuro next to a 60-inch 4K OLED, provided the plasma was brand new out of the box, you'd probably have a pretty tough time deciding which one was better. But you'd probably end up going with the OLED at the end of the day.
That's cool. Anyway, sorry to derail things there, but
I'm all about train wrecks.
Right on. That old technology at the high end is not that bad still these days. Yeah.
Not at all. No, not at all. And speaking about technology, old versus new, I mean, HDMI, it's been around forever. And as we all know, it just works all the time, right? Perfectly. But no, they're always going to be, yeah. There are always going to be upgrades. There are always going to be refinements to any technology, and HDMI is no different. One of the things that I wanted to show to everybody today is something that's still a little bit of a confusion factor, and I want to make sure that everybody's clear on this, is where cables are concerned under the HDMI 2.1 specification. If you want to get one of those HDMI ultra high speed logos and certification for your HDMI cable, that means you have to get certified at the maximum bandwidth of 48 gigabits per second. For cables. For hardware, virtually every hardware manufacturer under the sun, including the company that makes the HDMI 2.1 chipsets for Pioneer, ONKYO, Integra, and virtually every other consumer AV and professional AV brand out there, 40 gigabits is going to be 99.999% the common theme in hardware. So 40 gigabits for hardware, 48 gigabits for cable. Now, the caveat to this is no sooner did I make up this slide than JVC, I believe, announced a new front projector that has 48 gigabit hardware. Now, I don't really understand that, frankly, because the 48 gigabits bandwidth is for resolutions like, 10K. It could pass a 10K through signal at 48 gigabits per second. But the video processor in that projector is not a 10K video processor. So I don't really understand what the point is to that. But, what do I know? I'm sure somebody will educate me on that shortly.
Well, just to interject, usually it starts with a display device because it's like the most ubiquitous device in the system. So you'll usually see the advances start at the display device and then slowly trickle down into source components. And in the case of an AVR, we're a repeater device.
Yeah.
So we're really just saying, okay, Mr. Source, what can you do? And we just want to repeat that to the TV without getting in the way.
Yeah. So for all the source devices that are on the market today, our 40 gigabit per second bandwidth is more than enough space to handle any of the source components out there, whether they're streaming devices or the latest and greatest game consoles.
And to that point, the Xbox Series X is capped at 40 gigabits per second, and the PlayStation 5 is 32 actually.
Yeah. And speaking of which, my next
all I heard there was Xbox is better. That's all I heard.
Well, we thoroughly go through both of them, and I will say that there are some awesome things about both of them. And when I switch between the two, I go, no, this one's better. No, that one's better. No, this one's better. And I enjoy a certain game on one, and maybe not so much on the other, and vice versa. So they're both pretty cool devices.
That's cool.
Yeah, and part of the whole HDMI 2.1 spec, it's kind of a mishmash of technologies that actually go back a generation or so, but have all been combined under the HDMI 2.1 specification. But some of them are brand new, of course, like 4K resolution with high dynamic range at 120 hertz or 120 frames per second. And that's something that our receivers are able to pass through without any hiccups, unlike other brands, which we won't mention here. So part of those advances that you get with HDMI 2.1 are things like game mode. And this is where things get a little confusing, because to Rob's point earlier, you see a lot of advanced technology start in the display end of things. So HDMI 2.0B displays out there, some of them from last year actually support game mode already. But this has now been included in the HDMI 2.1 specification. So if you get a new HDMI 2.1 product, it's going to support all of these technologies. It's all part of the encompassing realm of technology, so to speak. Game mode, of course, when you plug in a Xbox or a PlayStation 5 into a receiver and it passes that signal through the TV or directly to the TV, if it's got HDMI 2.1 or game mode capabilities built into it already, it will automatically switch the TV into game mode for auto low latency and all those fun features and like dynamic HDR, for example, which, as far as I know, I'm the only one in the whole world that thinks that that's kind of redundant. Because what does the D in HDR stand for?
Dynamic.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's how dumb is Rolf, right? No, it's dynamic, high dynamic range. So whatever high dynamic range is, dynamic makes it better. So you actually,
it does make it better.
Dynamic makes high dynamic range better.
It
makes it more dynamicer. So we get a more lifelike picture, and especially where games are concerned. There's a lot of new 4K games out there that are encoded in HDR and dynamic HDR, and they just make these games really pop, like you're looking into the real world. I don't need to tell you guys that. You know that for yourselves. And variable refresh rate, of course, too. That's essential for the console and the desktop PC gamers. That's really cool too, because you've got these scenes that have been rendered with an incredible amount of detail. But typically, when you have a scene like we are now, where we're just talking to each other without really moving around too much, the amount of detail in the picture can be quite high. But the minute the bullets start flying and the boats start jumping across the water and the airplanes fly by, those scenes happen so quickly, and the refresh rates can really ramp up, and then you start to lose information. So having variable refresh rate really helps improve that picture quality and the way that the display will render the information that's being generated by the console or the PC. So it keeps all of that information intact regardless of what the refresh rate is for that particular scene.
That's cool.
What else we got? Oh, this is interesting. Now, you mentioned earlier, Giles, that people were wondering what the relationship between ONKYO and Klipsch was. Well, hey, we're joined at the hip. or at the top of the head, as the case may be. This is something that was kind of inevitable. Klipsch engineers and ONKYO engineers in the same house, they had to come up with something that was kind of unique and cool. Typically, when you do any kind of automatic room calibration, like we've got AccuEQ in ONKYO products and MCACC, multi-channel acoustic calibration, expialidocious in the Pioneer products, when you do any kind of in-house calibration system, it will automatically detect the capabilities of those speakers and pick a crossover point that it thinks is appropriate. And in a lot of cases, that's okay. That works pretty well. But when you talk to a speaker designer, an engineer for speakers, and you talk about changing crossovers, higgledy-piggledy, that kind of upsets people because they've worked their entire careers to develop a specific sound from these speakers that they're engineering and putting into production. And when you change crossovers, you can really affect how that speaker performs and how it gets that information that they've worked so hard to share with you. We talked about emotion earlier. They get very emotional when you talk about just changing crossover levels, not the way that they think are optimized. So ONKYO engineers and Klipsch engineers got together and they came up with something that they call the Klipsch mode. And for all the Klipsch junkies on the call tonight, if you have Klipsch reference speakers, you can actually go into the setup of the receiver when you first get it out of the box and hook it up to your speakers and tell it that you are using Klipsch speakers. And it will give you a complete list of every single Klipsch reference speaker known to man. And you can pick and choose the specific Klipsch reference model for the particular application that you're using. Like you can see here, for example, we've selected these speakers from Klipsch reference for those particular channels. And then once you've done that, it will automatically assign the engineer's preferred crossover points for those particular model Klipsch reference speakers. So
okay.
Then you'll get,
yeah. I have to do this one day.
Yeah. do it right now.
No, I mean, I don't have a full set of Klipsch speakers nor ONKYO.
Well, is the store closed? Get online and order some.
I got a credit card. No, this is kind of cool.
It is very cool.
I mean, it's kind of niche and it's kind of like, lock-in kind of stuff. But man, it's pretty sweet if you got the right pieces.
Yeah, if you got the right pieces. Yeah, and this is also something, Rob and I can go on literally for days about differentiations of the brands. They all have so many similar features. How do we actually differentiate them when we're influencing their designs and putting them into stores and figuring out what prices to sell them at? And this is something that's only found in ONKYO and Integra. It's not found in Pioneer or Pioneer Elite. So that right there is a very interesting differentiator.
Okay. One other question I have. What is double bass? Because whenever somebody says, would you like double bass? My answer typically will be yes, please.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah.
But you have it turned off.
I know. Well, that's did we pick, maybe they didn't. Oh no, they picked the subwoofer. They picked the R100 SW. So no, I mean, silly them. They should have double bass turned on all the time. If we had quadruple bass, I'd be all over that.
I agree. It's like 8K bass.
So double bass is a setting where you can select whether or not, let me backtrack. When you first get the receiver out of the box, the receiver doesn't know what you're hooking up to it in terms of speakers. They don't know what the range of the speakers are. You could have little bookshelves. You could have satellite speakers. You could have big, giant tower speakers. They don't know.
Speakers don't talk to your AVR. They don't
exactly.
know. AVR doesn't know.
Maybe someday. So the subwoofer levels are usually, and the crossover points are automatically set to a point where whatever you play through that receiver the first time, if you're a novice and you don't really understand that, there isn't going to be a signal that's going to try to send out something that's completely full range for a little teeny tiny speaker that will pop it. So if you do have full range speakers, great. If you add a subwoofer, great. You would turn subwoofer setting on in the speaker configuration. You would say, yes, I have a subwoofer. But if you want to have bass from a subwoofer playing back regardless of what the content is, in other words, a sub for low frequency effects for movies is a given. People typically understand the subwoofers are fantastic for watching multi-channel surround sound movies.
Yep.
What a lot of people don't realize, though, is that subwoofers are actually very important for 2-channel music listening, because a sub is designed to play those bottom octaves that even full range speakers can have trouble playing back without drawing a ridiculous amount of power from the amplifier, which that amplifier may not be able to sustain. So having a subwoofer in the mix can actually really help smooth out the bottom frequencies in 2-channel music listening, not just for multi-channel movies. So even if you had full range speakers that could typically go pretty low, if you want to have the subwoofer playing while you're playing 2-channel music, you would turn what they call double bass on.
Got it.
So
well, I'm 2.1 for life, so I'm with you.
Yeah. So again, if you're happy with your full range speakers, or even some big stand mounted speakers, if you're happy with the bass performance with those, and you've got a subwoofer in the mix, you don't have to have bass. You don't have to have the subwoofer on. But for people like you and me that like bass, we would probably want to turn the subwoofer on. In that case, we would choose the option double bass and turn that from off to on.
Very cool.
That was a very long-winded way of saying it's mo bass.
Mo bass, mo better.
Yeah. So what else have we got? I don't know. Let's keep moving here. Oh, here we go. Yes, this is the game changer, ladies and gentlemen. So as many people know already, because we've not been shy about it, a lot of press announcements out there, starting with the ONKYO TX-NR 7100 and the Integra 3.4 and the Elite 305, we get D-Rack.
Oh, that's the secret sauce.
D-Rack is, they should be paying me to talk about D-Rack, because I can just talk about it forever. It's really an exceptional audio acoustic room calibration solution. It's, DTS, whenever DTS designs and builds a recording facility or calibrates a movie theater for 150 people or 200 people, they use D-Rack Pro to calibrate these spaces, and they're used also by a lot of luxury auto manufacturers as well too, when they're calibrating these high-end audio systems that are going into these Rolls Royces and Bentleys and so forth. So for the consumer, there are a couple of flavors of D-Rack out there. There's D-Rack Lite, which is just D-Rack, and then there's D-Rack Live, and D-Rack Live is a full 20 to 20 spectrum range of frequency responses that it can detect and calibrate for. So, whether you're using 2-channel or heck, even mono, if you're using, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12 speakers, D-Rack is the industry preferred choice among professionals and discerning audiophiles. Boy, that sounds like a marketing ad, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, it sounds like you read that off a script.
Well, I'm making it up in my head as I'm going along. So I'm just remembering all the things that I've talked about D-Rack in the past, and they're all kind of meshing together right now. So I'm on a roll, so I'm gonna stick with it. So D-Rack is something that, I'll be honest, the first time I played with D-Rack, I was like, what the hell have I got myself into? Because it looked really scary and really complex, but it's actually really straightforward. It's you don't really need much to really dive in and get into the meat and potatoes of it. And the reason I have this picture here of the nice fluffy clouds is because all D-Rack computations are done in the cloud. So when you have a receiver like the 7100 from ONKYO, and you hook it up to your network for the first time, and then you want to calibrate using the D-Rack software that's built in, you don't need a super powerful processor in the receiver to do this, because all of the test tones that are being generated by the receiver and captured by the microphone that you're using, we'll talk about that in just a second, all that information is not being processed in the receiver. It's going out to the cloud. Some master computer brainiac on the cloud is going, ooh, information, and it
so there's a supercomputer that crunches your numbers for you.
It crunches your numbers for you. Yes, absolutely. Kind of like, a fortifying breakfast cereal. And then I have no idea.
Or Skynet. I mean, one or the other.
Sure. Or yeah. So when you want to calibrate with D-Rack, you get a couple of options with us, with our products out there. is you can use the DRAC app that's built into our free Android and Apple devices control app. That's available on the Android and Apple stores, completely free. And it gives you complete total control of the receiver, but it also includes the DRAC app. So this is just one particular screen capture that I got from the DRAC app on the mobile device.
I just want to say that somebody needs subwoofers.
Everybody needs subwoofers.
I mean, somebody in this graph, they need some subwoofers.
Everybody needs subwoofers. As many subwoofers as possible, please. And you can do this with the included wired microphone that comes with the receiver out of the box. So if you want to get great response from your speakers in the unique acoustic space that you're in, and everybody's space is unique, even in cookie cutter homes and apartments, every space is always unique because of the furniture and the carpets, lack of carpets, curtains, drapes, whatever. You know the story. Every space is unique. So to get the best impact out of that audio system that you've invested so much time, money, and emotion into building, use DRAC, open up the app, plug in the included microphone in the front of the receiver, and it will walk you in baby steps, hold your hand and tell you, okay, let's configure the system. How many speakers are you using? Okay, now I know. All right, position the microphone here. Let's run some test tones. Okay, let's move the microphone over there. You get up to 9 different microphone positions that you can calibrate for using the mobile app. 13 in the laptop or desktop app version of DRAC. But with the included microphone that we're using here, you can get up to 9 positions, and then you can go into, once the cloud is computed what those responses should be in an ideal environment, you can go in and make your own personal adjustments, because everybody has their own taste in sound. So you can go in and like, okay, yeah, DRAC says it should sound like this, but you know, I want more what?
Center channel plus 3 decibels. Everybody does it.
Yeah, and I want more what? I want more bass. So you can go in and make adjustments to your heart's content after the fact. We kind of have a philosophy like doctors, which is do no harm. Our philosophy for audio is it's your system. Do what you want with it. We don't care. We're going to give you the tools to get the sound you want. It may not be the sound that I want or your neighbor wants, but it's the sound you want. And you're the most important person. So let's give you the tools to get the sound you want. And this is all well and good for out of the box and getting a much better audio experience than you would normally get if you just plugged in everything and hit play on your source device. But what if you're, say, an integrator and you've got that receiver in a rack in a closet in the basement and the home theater space is upstairs 2 floors away? That microphone that's included in the box, that cord's not going to reach from that receiver wherever it happens to be all the way up the stairs and into the home theater space. So what can you do? Well, the solution is pretty simple, and DRAC itself is pretty simple as well too. What you can do is you can go to the desktop or PC laptop or Windows application of DRAC, and you can get a $99 microphone on Amazon that's recommended by DRAC. This one here that's shown on screen is a DSP one from or a UMIC one microphone from Mini DSP. Plug that into your laptop, and now you're completely untethered from the receiver. You can leave that receiver wherever it is, somewhere else in the house, and go back into the home theater space and do all the calibration from the comfort of the home theater space, whether it's a single-seated position or multi-seated positions, and get an even better result than you will using the mobile app and the included wired microphone. And again, earlier I said that that was kind of intimidating the first time I opened it up and tried it myself. But really, once you go past start, the ease of use, the friendliness of which it says, okay, you're here. Now we're going to go there. This is how we get there. These are the results. Okay, now you can play with the results. It's much less intimidating than it appears at first blush. So if anybody out there has not used DRAC and you're interested in using it, by all means, try it out. It's not that scary.
So when you use it in this form factor, I guess, with the PC and your microphone, so you go and you've got your tool there, and for DIY folks, it's kind of similar to a RAW kind of experience, I would guess. But at the end of the day, is this creating some kind of like a XML or configuration file that it dumps down to your processor, and then that will set all your crossover points and volume and latency and all that kind of stuff?
It does, actually, and I'm not going to talk about it in detail right here. I'm going to leave that to Rob, because Rob has some interesting things that he's going to show us in just a few minutes regarding some of the more advanced features in our product. And part of that will actually specifically address that question. So I'll leave that for Rob to talk about. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I will move on from here now that we know we have DRAC in the mix, and see what else we've got. Oh yeah, he's very excited.
He's like, yeah, we're done with DRAC.
I am done, actually. So I'm done babbling. And yes, we are 75 years old this year. Hooray us. So it's our birthday and your birthday.
I'm perfect. I love it. One thing I wanted to ask about was, how does THX come into this mix?
THX is something that ONKYO was actually first in the consumer industry to support in home theater AV product. Gosh, when was that? 1993, I think it was. With the let me see if I can get that model number right. The TX SV919 THX was the model. That was
well done.
Amazing receiver. I actually was selling those in retail. Just built like a tank. It was beautiful, beautiful. We've always been obsessed with reproduction of audio and video accurately, and with the current lineup, that philosophy hasn't changed. In the ONKYO and the Integra models with ONKYO, that starts with the actually the TX NR6100, which is our mid-tier priced ONKYO product, and then it goes into the 7100. The TX RZ50, also in the ONKYO line. And on the Integra line, it starts with the DRX 5.4. And another differentiator is that we are not including THX in the Pioneer Elite line. And that's another story all in and of itself. But for ONKYO and Integra, for our customer base, we did some surveys a few years back, and THX is a very, very important name brand recognition and feature set for our product. And we could spend this entire conversation talking about the benefits of THX and how it can make a custom integrator who's building a home theater make their life a lot better. But again, that's another technical propeller head conversation for another session. What it really boils down to for us as a manufacturer, from a very simplistic, if you will, standpoint, which is not doing THX a favor here, but they are an unbiased third-party testing house, if you will, and they will literally run these receivers through a gamut of thousands of tests over a period of about a week, where they will test every single signal pathway for the audio and the video circuitry and the amplifier, and every combination of user feature sets that you can possibly think of. It's thousands of tests without any exaggeration. And the end goal is to see if these products can not only just pass audio and video signals without anything being added or anything taken away, it's also to make sure that the amplifier is incredibly clean and dynamic and has the amperage and the punch to provide the dynamic energy that's required to reproduce these films and these music and now these games that we all enjoy the way that the content creator wants you to hear it. So it's a guarantee of performance, if you will. That's what the THX logo is all about, is sir, ma'am, this amplifier, this processor is going to give you the same experience in your home that you would expect to get in a multi-million-dollar professional movie theater in your home. So that's what is very exciting for us about maintaining our relationship with THX. It's not just a logo that we pay for, gets silk screen on the front of the receivers. It's a testament to the engineering skill for our engineers, not to sound redundant, in making audio and video products that really are incredibly neutral when it comes to whatever you're putting into it, and making sure that you get the maximum performance from them.
Right on. Cool. I feel a little bit bad right now because I don't think Rob's really talked at all.
That's good. That's a good thing. No. No, Rob's going to blow everybody out of the water in just a minute. He's going to make everybody's going to like, Rolf who? After they hear Rob talk, because he's got the cool shit to talk about. Oh, I said a naughty word.
So bad. Oh my God.
The point about THX for me, it was really cool growing up and seeing that, splash screen happen before Star Wars and all that. And of course it had a emotional impact. But then later on, when I started to build theater spaces, first as a merchandiser for retail. So I spent like 14 years in retail building stores and merchandising them and putting systems together with every brand under the sun. And as I started to learn a little bit more, I took a course by Anthony Gramani, who worked for Lucasfilm. And I realized that it's a whole lot more than that, splash screen logo, and that there are, decades invested into sight lines and room dimensions and things like that, and acoustics. And I learned a whole lot about acoustics. And if you have a chance and you can take an online THX, even the entry-level course, there's so much to learn there, generally speaking, about home theater, that it's just fun, regardless of any logos or splash screens or surround modes that you don't use anymore, as the case may be in your particular system. So there's a legacy of an incredible amount of information available by those folks, and they have invested decades into their training programs. So, I mean, it's kind of like hanging out with home theater fanatics, and forget about, I don't like using the THX surround mode. Okay, don't use it. But you know what? That brand, that company is still heavily invested in building better theaters, whether it be professional concerts or right in your home. And being THX certified select, it basically means that it's certified to up to a certain amount of, like, let's say 2,000 cubic feet, right? Which is like a typical media room, living room, right? So they're not telling you, take this Integra receiver or this ONKYO receiver that's 80 watts per channel or 100 watts per channel and stick it in, an IMAX theater. I mean,
right.
It's not like that at all. I mean, we all have a very deep understanding of what it takes to move air in that capacity of a venue. But really, there's so much to learn. I learned a whole lot. Actually, to be honest, after the Gramani courses and after doing my own research and building some rooms, I learned a whole lot of real world stuff about acoustics. I'm also a musician and done recordings and all that stuff. Went to NYU for sound design and this and that. But the point is, when you see it in a one-day training by THX, they've taken all of those things that took me so freaking long, and like all those trial and error situations, and they basically condensed it into like a day or two training. So it's a whole lot of fun, That being said, I don't even know what we were talking about, but let me just, you were
going to wow us with something is what we were talking about.
Rolf is a very eloquent presenter and I'm not. And no. Instead, I'm just going to like kind of peel back. I'm going to peel the curtain back a little bit and show you guys out there what it's like on our side. Because, when I was, when I wasn't working in the industry, I, just couldn't imagine what goes on behind the scenes and how things are made. And, why was this done this way? So I'm going to share my screen and just show you a couple of files that I'll probably get in trouble for sharing. Quite honestly.
I like it. The secret sauce.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what it took to communicate on how the DRAC app in our app works, right? So when you get the ONKYO app, this is, part, not the programming. This is part of understanding how the user is going to interact with this. So, it's really easy to say, well, I like this better, I like that better. But believe me when I tell you, like, there's a lot of late nights from folks just like you that would sit there and go, no, this isn't right. We have to make it better. And, there's a whole lot at stake and a lot of, you ever wonder why a firmware upgrade takes so long? It's because it'll affect everything in that software patch. So, Rolf mentioned differentiation between the brands. Well, if you had ONKYO and Integra as your products and you built an awesome piece of software, it's like, why? If it's awesome, put it in both products and let everybody enjoy it. And that's really what it's become. So I'll also show you what our APIs look like. So
was that a UI flowchart?
Yeah. Well, let me explain.
Don't show anybody the HDMI diagnostics flowchart. That was a nightmare.
Yeah. So that was just the app, flowchart in. Well, listen. There's a lot of tools out there that communicate these things, and some brands that have been around for a while are experts at those tools. And sometimes you'll receive something that's in like Lotus Notes, and you're like, "What?" But yeah. But I mean, because it's a legacy, it's a legacy procedure that works for their form of communication. So they're extremely, extremely detailed, talented, smart folks. But where do we come in? We're dumb, and we just like to sit down and listen to movies and watch movies, right? So we say, okay, all that technical stuff's really cool, but if it doesn't produce an entertaining end result and it's not fun and easy to use, well, to be honest, I like the Rubik's Cube challenge, but for the majority of people, like, you don't want to be sitting there not being able to watch a movie because you can't figure out what the hell's going on. So that's where we come in and we say, we were on Home Theater Fanatics and people were asking about THX and people were asking about this. And we want to bring that enthusiasm to the engineering boardrooms. And I was in Japan and I sat down in these two big boardrooms, one in Osaka, and Rolf's been through this stuff too, and in Tokyo. And it was like this like dark, ominous feeling, and everybody's like staring at you like, what can you possibly teach us? And I'm sure they didn't mean that, but it felt like that, the first couple times. And, if you stick with it and you prove the value of what it is that we're asking for, it's going to end up in that product. And we're testament to it. So what we're showing you today with the DRAC, and even to some degree, the HDMI 2.1, because as much as everybody's been hearing about it and this and that, oh, it should just work. Well, when LG recently released Dolby Atmos gaming firmware update for the Xbox Series X, nobody had ever used it before. And we've loaned one of our RZ50s to a man named Vincent Tio, HDTV test, who's super sharp guy. And he's like, I can't get it to work. And within 24 hours, we had a beta for him because our engineers went, oh, okay, I see the symptom. We're going to get in there. We're going to get this done right. So, it's about getting it right. And look, nothing out there is perfect. These are highly complicated devices that communicate with highly complicated devices. But the important thing is that there's like guys like us who really are the same as the end user and don't want to sit there and be annoyed that something's not working, right? So like Rolf said, we're Home Theater Fanatics. We live and breathe this. We couldn't be in this business if we didn't, because I would just go and make oven mitts or something. I don't know. I'd have to find something else to do because it's a very challenging business. But what you're seeing here is, our command lists that, it's all expected that all these commands should be in there. But you know what? When's the last time a human being tested every one of these in multiple control systems with multiple remotes? That takes an investment. By the way, a lot of these say no because this is going back for all you legacy. I mean, we're going back to the old RDC7 here. So you're going to see things like DRAC that say no because it didn't exist back then, right? And that's just the main zone commands. So I like kind of have fun, and I say, if I was a home theater fanatic and I didn't work in the business, I would love to see stuff like this. You never really see it. You just see, oh, it's this many watts per channel and all that. And actually, I will be annoying with that for 1 second. So we were talking about HDMI 2.1 and bandwidth, and we made this like handy dandy thing for us on the inside to constantly refer to. And you can see that, once you get past our entry-level 5100, every device in all the brands lineups have a minimum of 3 40 gigabit per second inputs, which is the extent of the HDMI repeater hardware that's available right now, and also the extent of the Xbox Series X. So that's a major investment in making sure that you have the bandwidth necessary to get done what needs to be done today. And I hate to use the word future-proof, but, there's a certain amount of that in there too. And like when you look at this key, and I know I like to get into the weeds a little bit, but when you look at a key like this, even the 5100 can do 4K 120 HDR, albeit at 420 chroma, which is basically what's used in Blu-rays. So you're not hurting there, So our entry-level device is bringing an incredible gaming experience, and also passing through as much as you will really find from a source component at this point, until you get up into the higher bit rate. When you force, for example, an Xbox to deliver 444, even though the content's coming from Netflix, right?
Right.
So,
hey, Rob, I think we might not be seeing the same screen that you're seeing right now, because we're still stuck on that Japanese iPhone screen.
Oh, we're still there?
Yeah.
Oh,
boy, I don't think it's following. I don't think it's moving along.
Thanks for letting me know. Usually I use OBS for all this sharing, so just forgive me. I will bring that back, and now we'll share the screen that I was discussing. Actually, if I do this, can I just bounce around like that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you should be able to bounce around.
So do you see where it says Zone 2?
Yep.
Okay, so great. So now I can bounce around. So anyways, what I was talking about before is this is all our command sets.
Yep.
Right. So I'm not going to go over that again, but let's look at the HDMI bandwidth. And now you can see that now with the 40 gig per second.
Yep.
Okay. So you can see again, I'll just reiterate very quickly that how it's 24 gigabit per second, only on the 5100. And again, if we look at a key like this and we look at the designations of the HDMI spec, you want to look for something like 8K 60B, which is compressed mode, which you can achieve at 24, but we can also achieve 4K 120 HDR, but with 420 chroma, which is basically what blue discs are sampled at. So, and I'm just racing through some of this stuff just to kind of give everybody an idea of the thought that goes into it. And a lot of it is based on feedback from the end user, an enthusiast like ourselves. So why don't we show a little bit about web setup, since I'm rambling.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to talk about the web setup, and then I think it'd be good to talk about the product mix. What's available today versus what's going to be coming in the future, or whatever. At least we can talk about and understand. But I know people want to know what they can go look at and see.
For sure. So what you're looking at here is basically I typed the IP address of the 5100 that I have next to me in here. And from any web browser-based device, you can now go through and basically tweak this thing to your heart's content. This piece is not DRAC equipped, but if it were, you could select DRAC slots for different inputs. There's also a variety of really, really cool tweaky stuff. Like you could send out test patterns on this particular piece. It's, again, it's somewhat limited in its bandwidth, but you could send out test patterns to your sync device, your TV, to ensure that, you're passing the full bandwidth. Say you have a certain source component that's giving you some trouble, you can at least eliminate your cable situation and the bandwidth that's associated with it. And something that's important too is when you're setting up your AVR these days, and with a lot of TVs, it's the same thing. You actually want to go in and unlock the full capabilities of the bandwidth. And you'll notice that a lot of TVs, like you have to go in and turn on 4K 120 and that sort of thing. Yeah, so it's no different in the AVRs, and the reason why is because if somebody walks into a big box store and picks this up and plugs their cable box in, and there's some kind of discrepancy here because their cables can't pass full bandwidth. They're still get a picture going on the screen, but I know for advanced users like the folks on this call, stuff like this is paramount to getting the full the full experience. And then we also have really crazy stuff in here if you really want to go bananas, and this is password protected, so your little Johnny's not going to figure out how to access an IP address and go in there and start turning off Dolby Vision, right? But this again is for faster switching between components, easier to troubleshoot any type of weird stuff that might happen with like an old satellite box. Say, I know a lot of folks have an older satellite box to pick up a station from somewhere around the world, and they just won't let go of it. Mm-hmm. So there's been an ultra a lot of effort put into the tweakability and the deep dive into these products.
Hey Rob, show them where you can apply DRAC.
Yeah, so let me. So then what I'll do is I should be able to just swap over to this screen, right? So this is an Integra DRX 3.4. It's DRAC equipped. So you would just go to audio and go to DRAC Live. And then, I constantly reset my device just to do stuff like this. So there's no DRAC slots, but I could select and say, for Blu-ray, I want DRAC slot number 2. Now, what would DRAC slot number 2 be? Well, let's say it's your favorite hi-fi listening mode where it's really focused in on a sweet spot. So you could, perhaps your Blu-ray player is a multi-disc player and you have an SACD in there and you want to experience like super high res, perfectly sweet spot, just one listener, that's fine. But if you switch to DRAC slot number 3, maybe in that one, it's when the whole family's together watching a movie and they're spread around the room and you created a DRAC slot for that listening environment.
Right. So a DRAC slot is just a set of configurations for DRAC for, what you could just have however many slots you have. That's each one is a different config.
That is correct.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And you can set configs for different devices, which is pretty hot too. I like that. And,
if you're somebody who's into control systems, I know Harmony's no longer in business, but if you're like a Harmony user and you get and they still support the API, the sky's the limit for how you can create macros to access those DRAC slots and also a ton of other like really cool stuff. But again, that's for somebody that's really tweaking it out and, but that's what we're here for.
Cool. Yeah, I want to get my hands on a control for their new, was it Mimo or something like that, remote control, the new touch screen one they have. Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, that's the Neo. Yeah, I actually have one of those. Let me show you something here, just for fun.
Yeah, I've got a buddy who just got his set up. He actually got 4 of them set up to control like 13 televisions because that's how he rolls. It's pretty cool.
So
nice.
Giles, I just want to interject for just a second. I was looking through some of the comments. And I just wanted to address a couple of these.
Yeah, go for it.
Getting set up there. One of them was asking why Pioneer Elite's not THX certified, and the reason being for that is really pretty basic, and that's because we're too cheap. We actually had more THX certified product at Pioneer under one brand than all the others combined. But over the years, it became very expensive to go through that whole testing and certification process for a company that really did not have deep pockets. And because we had so many product that were THX certified, it just became a real burden on the old bank account. And weirdly enough, when we surveyed consumers, whereas THX was very important as a recognition factor for ONKYO and Integra consumers, THX really didn't come into the conversation when we talked to a lot of the old diehard Pioneer Elite customers. They really weren't terribly interested in it. So that's really the two simple answers to that. And just one other comment that somebody asked is, when can we see a slideshow showing the front and back panels of the receivers that are available? I do have one ready to go. So as soon as Rob's is done, then we can show them rear and front panel shots.
Yeah, go for it, Rolf. I actually dropped in a link to Giles for our spec sheets on the virtual CES that we had.
All right. Well, I've got a few slides that I can share here.
Yeah, if you have those handy, that would be even better.
I do. So here is the entry 5100, which hopefully everybody can see now.
Yep, we can see that.
Which, there we go. There's my full screen. So that's the 5100, DTSX, Dolby Atmos, 7 channels. Zone B, which means that it has a little output on the back. If you can see my little mouse moving around. Think of this as like speaker B back in the good old days. So, you can see Zone B biamp. You can have a speaker B, or we call it Zone B, or you can run these out to the base station for some wireless headphones. So whatever's playing in the main zone is what's going to play back over Zone B. So this could go to an amplifier for some outdoor speakers. So if you want to listen to outdoors what you're listening to on the inside, you could do that. So some even though it's an entry-level receiver, still has some pretty flexible features built into it.
And those are the antennas that are bent down to the sides.
Yeah, it's complete network cable receiver. So this has an NXP processor on board, which among other things allows for 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, so much greater range, more reliable handshakes for wireless devices, and more bandwidth for higher resolution files.
Awesome.
These 4 inputs are HDMI 2.1, and both are HDMI 2.1 outputs. So you could actually play back to 2 different displays up to 8K on both of those outputs simultaneously. So, like a basement movie theater where you've got the big front projection going, and then in the back you've got a little wet bar with a little flat panel TV. No matter which way you turn, you'd see the same thing playing back.
So if you had 2 projectors for increased light output, could you just cable each of your PJs up to one of these outputs and get synced video output for that?
Yeah, or one for each eye.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I like it. Now, is this available today, or is it coming?
Well, yes and no. We only because of COVID, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, COVID has caused such chaos in the industry, from raw materials to manufacturing to shipping in particular. So, every time we'd turn around, a factory here or a factory there had closed and another one had opened. So these were all ready to go many months ago. And we had to wait for factories to open up and transport to get from point A to point B, Zone B in this case. And these receivers have been trickling into the country right now in very small quantities, and some of them are already sold out. But don't worry, they're coming back into the country in much greater quantities over the next several months. So
the 5100's in stock right now at Crutchfield, and I think Best Buy.
Yeah, get them while they're hot, ladies and gentlemen.
Now the 6100 is going to show up around the November timeframe for the first time, so that has not been available yet. Long story behind that, but yeah, that's going to be showing up in November in some pretty good quantities. And this is where we get into the THX certification. So for some weird reason, I don't have that logo up at the top. Usually I do that, but you can see it on the display there, THX Cinema. And this one is also 7-channel, but it's now going from Zone B to Zone 2. It still has Zone B if you want to, but you can select Zone 2 or Zone B. So discrete Zone 2 for audio and video. So this is actually an HDMI matrix built in. So if you look at the back panel here, one of our big wins was let's relabel everything on the back so there's no confusion anymore as to what input can do what. So we have 3 18 gigabit per second 4K 60 inputs, and then we have 3 8K 60 or 4K 120 40 gigabit per second inputs. So the way that the splitters work, and this is true for everybody in the industry currently, maybe next year it'll be different, but currently, if you want to do 2 8K displays at the same time, you have to do it off of a single source, off of one of these 3. If you want to do 8K to the main zone and 8K to the second zone with 2 different sources, you're out of luck. And this is, again, true for everybody in the industry. 8K only to the main zone, a different source to Zone 2 will go down to 4K. That's just the nature of single chip solutions at this time. So, going forward in the future, that may definitely change.
Right on.
Then we go into the 7100, which is also featuring IMAX, not just DRAC, but IMAX as well. So IMAX enhanced, which is kind of like, it's IMAX and DTS's version of THX, I guess. That'd be one way of thinking of it. There's a lot more to it than that. But just as THX tests everything to make sure that there's no degradation, nothing added or nothing taken away from the audio and video pathways, and the amplifier is up to scratch. IMAX takes that to in a whole other direction, but a phenomenal direction. For those of you that haven't really familiarized yourself with that, in a nutshell, is they work very closely on a video and audio side of things with the content creators themselves. So if the audio engineer and the cinematographer are available, they'll work with them to take that gigantic IMAX theater experience and rescale it, not just for the audio, but also the visual impact for a much smaller home theater screen or projector. Because obviously, most people don't have a 200-foot IMAX screen in their homes. They have like a 200-inch IMAX screen in their homes. So in a theater, the grain level, just one example of many, the grain that's in a film that's being shown in a 200-foot IMAX screen, that could be overwhelming on a smaller screen in someone's home. So they reprocess the film to recalibrate all the elements of the original film stock so that you get the best impact in the home environment, not just for audio as well. But that's it in a nutshell. Back panel here, we've got 3 zones, of course, all powered. So up to 3 different sources playing back in 3 different rooms at the same time, as well as a detachable power cord, RS-232 for control, and legacy video inputs like component and composite. When we go to Integra, we have some interesting differences, not the least of which is every single feature and function and control is available on the faceplates of Integras. Again, it's CI oriented. So, when you're setting up and configuring in a rack or a custom cabinet, that remote control is going to go missing. So you want to be able to have instant access to every feature and function at receiver right off the faceplate. So
quick question. So the 6100 is the top of the line on the ONKYO for the
Well,
ONKYO
yes
brand?
and no. The 7100 in the regular ONKYO line, if you will. Then we have our RZ line, which I couldn't find a slide of in time for this, but the RZ is kind of like an integrator line of ONKYO products, similar to Integra, with not quite as many bells and whistles, but really mostly for distributors that cater to the installer market.
Okay.
One of the big differentiators between Integra and all the other brands out there that we're working with is this back panel, which obviously is different. It's white background with black text versus black background and white text. And the big advantage of this, again, is as an integrator, if you're working in a dark equipment closet, having this extra reflectivity, this extra light reflectivity of a white background panel will make things a little bit easier to figure out what you're plugging into where, and make your life as an installer a little bit easier. And it's these little things that add up for a better experience for the installer. And of course, more 12-volt triggers, ins and outs, and all that kind of stuff. 3.4, this is something that Rob in particular is very proud of. One of the, not to make a long story short, but again, differentiation between the brands, trying to figure out what can we add, what can we take away to make one model from one particular brand really stand out. And of course, adding pre-outs to the 3.4 in particular was a big win for us across the board, because as I'm sure many people on this call know, the ability to be able to swap out amplifiers for main use or distributed audio use throughout the house, that's a very essential tool to have that kind of flexibility on the receiver.
Yeah, I love pre-outs on a receiver. That's
yeah, because you can add more subwoofers, right?
Yeah, well, you can. It just makes it so flexible.
Yeah, it does. And again, it's your system. We want you to be able to do what you want with it. Then we go to the 5.4. That's THX Select certified. More power, more flexibility, just a lot more. bigger power supply, more amperage. I think it's like a 45 amp power supply on board this. This one is pretty huge. When we go to Elite, totally different look and feel to a different market.
Feels like Elite right there.
It does, doesn't it?
Yep.
So 2-zone. 305 is a 9-channel, so a 3-zone. Now, again, this is the 305, which a lot of people would mistake looking at the back panel for the 3.4 from Integra, but we are completely lacking those pre-outs, those multi-channel pre-outs. And we have fewer 12-volt triggers as well, too, on the all the brands compared to Integra. Here's the 505. I've actually got one sitting next to me in my office right now that I experiment with and try to break on a daily basis. And here we have 11-channel pre-outs, just like the 5.4 and the Integra. The RZ50 also has 11-channel pre-out. So just to clarify, this is a 9-channel amplifier, but it has an 11-channel DSP. So, you know, for cost savings purposes, we didn't put an 11-channel amplifier in it. So at this particular, the price points we're looking at for the 9-channel models, in the upper end, you can add an external 2-channel amplifier and get a full 11-channel surround sound.
Yeah, so you can do like 7.x.4.
Exactly.
Makes good sense.
All right. So, Rob, you're up. Take it away. Calgon.
Well, one question. Sorry, I just have to ask.
Sure.
Is there a plan on any of the product lines to move beyond the 11 channels, other than the subwoofer out, for a top end unit? So, do you ever have a vision down the line where you'll be able to support something like 9 bed channels and 4 or 6 Atmos channels?
Oh, there's always plans, Giles. There's always plans. That Rob can tell you we sometimes talk a little bit too freely, and that comes around and bites us in the butt. So let's just tell everybody today or tonight, wherever you happen to be, that we're always looking over the horizon and trying to. We've got plans.
And that's enough for me. That's from my point of view, exciting. That's cool. Awesome. All right, Rob. This time it really is back.
No, I think that about does it for me. So we're in half an hour over.
I know we're still in the first segment of the show.
Yeah, it's 11:30 p.m. Eastern time.
I think we're going to fast pace some of this and maybe skip the content corner this week. But I do want to take 5 or 10 minutes and close out the episode by answering a tech question of the week. So let me see if I can do a little thing here. Here we go. Now it's time for the tech question of the week, and it's sponsored by ONKYO. And by sponsored, I just mean they showed up to talk. Oh, and the tech question is, let me actually get to my notes so I can read it. How do you optimize your home theater audio experience, in particularly from a ONKYO point of view? I mean, so you've got a receiver and you got all these speakers and stuff, but what are some of the steps somebody might go through to really get this, as good as it possibly could be for them?
Well, Rob went to NY University for audio, so I'm gonna let him.
So that's the start. Get a bachelor's degree in acoustic engineering. All right, we're good with that. But outside of that, what would somebody do? I mean, is really using Dirac kind of the right tool set that people would want to avail themselves of to work on that, or
sure, yeah. There's a number of things you do. I mean, just simply right out of the box, understanding a little bit more than you might, do a little bit of research when you're assembling your system. The number of speakers you're going to be having in your listening position is try to get an idea of where, in theory, optimal positions for these speakers might be. So, for example, a subwoofer, you don't want that in the middle of the floor in the room because I think you'll trip over it. But try to do a little bit of research first to go on the forums, go on the YouTubulars, and see what other people are talking about and recommending in terms of like speaker position and placement, because your room is really a big giant speaker cabinet at the most elemental level. So your room is the biggest influencer of the sound that you're going to get. And if you want to improve your sound, take a look around you and think about where problem areas that room might be. Maybe there are highly reflective surfaces, like, you know, a hardwood floor with no area rugs or anything like that, things that you might want to do to help absorb a little of the higher frequencies and redirect some of that sound, so it's not as bright or as harsh at the listening position. And then once you've gotten a few of the basic steps down, then you can go to tools like DRAC to optimize everything in that room. Because most people, like me in particular, if you were to see my home theater space, you'd freak out, because in the early 80s single family home construction that I've got, home theater was not even an idea in the architect's dream. So all the doors, windows, and air conditioning returns are in all the wrong places. So I literally am forced to sit off center from my TV and my speakers. So it's really bizarre. But thanks to things like DRAC, you know, you can hook up the microphone and it will run a really advanced set of test tones and get a really good feel of what that acoustic space is and what those speakers are capable of doing in that space. And in particular, one of the things that really makes DRAC shine compared to other room tuning solutions out there is their patented impulse response detection. And that can be very complicated looking at on paper and on graphs to figure out what the heck impulse response is all about. But really what it is it's a twofold calibration process. The impulse response is the key, because you want to know what that speaker is actually capable of doing before the acoustics of the room screw up that signal. So that's where the impulse comes into. So when it runs the test tones, it listens to and is able to detect the frequencies being generated by those drivers on those speakers before the room reacts to those frequencies. And then it listens to the way the room is interacting with those frequencies. And that's where that cloud computation comes in. And that's why it's really above and beyond what a receiver processor could handle, because there's so much information it's dealing with. It's dealing with exactly the frequencies that speaker can reproduce, then the frequencies that the room is creating from those. It's expanding upon and distorting, and it puts those two measurements together and comes up with a solution that really kind of makes the room disappear and makes the speaker stand out the way it's supposed to, the way it was designed to sound.
That's cool. Yeah. So it you know, its goal is to really repair the sound so that whatever bad things that room is doing, you know, that goes away and you're just left with the experience.
Yeah, remove the room from the equation, and that's what DRAC does amazingly well.
Right on. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we're way over. And I thank you so much for your time, and everybody out there in audience land. Thanks for your time too. I know there are a lot of questions that we didn't get to, but that just means that we have to do this again one day so that we can work through all those. Maybe we'll just have a day of questions only. Yeah. Oh, but you know, Rob, Rolf, thank you so much. Look forward to having you guys again one of these days to chat with myself and everybody else that's out there in the world. And to all you folks out there in the world, thanks for joining us.
We really appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, next week we'll be back again with another great episode. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll have all the links down in the notes of this. I'm going to get with Rob and Rolf and get all of their ideas around where they would send people to get additional information for the things that we've talked about. And I'll make sure that's posted up so you can check that out in the coming days. So with that, putting a fork in it. Thank you, guys.
Happy birthday one more time, man.
All right. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody. See you guys in the next video.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody out there.